Hey, what's up guys? In this video we're going to be talking about bots and automation. Bots are cool and can really get along if you know how to befriend them, and I really believe humans can coexist with them in our future. No, not those kind of bots. Although that would be really cool, but I'm talking computer bots, and in this video we're going to create a WhatsApp automation bot which is going to talk to your girl all night long while you can work on your unfinished project. So before we begin, I just want to say, if you are new to the channel,
subscribe, motherfucker.
The code is available in the description below in case you are in a hurry. So let's begin for the rest of you. So this is going to be a very simple Python script, and we're going to need Selenium Python bindings to create it. Although I don't speak Python much, but will do for this video because apparently it's easier this way and it's faster. So first things first, open up your terminal emulator and do a quick pip install Selenium, which is going to install Selenium bindings for you, which I have already installed. Next, you're going to need Webdriver for your browser in order to open WhatsApp in your browser using the Selenium server. So let's download it. For Chrome, you can go to this web page here. I've linked to that in the description below. And from here, you can download Google Chrome driver, which supports the version of Google Chrome that you have installed. Running Google Chrome flag version will reveal the version for you. After you have downloaded it, make sure you know where you have placed the file, because we're going to need the location of this file in our program. So copy the path to your Webdriver. Next up, we're going to launch your favorite code editor to start coding. Go to File, New Project, select Python project and name it whatever and press Finish. PyCharm will set things up for you, and just to make our code more readable, we're going to create another file, say bot.py, in the same directory and open it. But before we begin coding, we're going to need some other packages. So do a pip install pyautogui and pynput. And if that doesn't work for you, which happens a lot due to maybe conflicting interpreter or some other reason, you can simply go to File, Project Settings, and Settings for New Project, and click on Python Interpreter from this left side pane, and click this little plus sign to search for a package and then install it. So make sure you install Selenium, pynput, and pyautogui from here, and you're all good to go. So first of all, import Webdriver from Selenium and then create a variable named path and paste the Acobot path to your Webdriver, which in my case is opt/Chrome driver. And then driver equals your imported Webdriver.chrome that takes in path as argument. And to test this, we're going to use .get method of driver and type in the URL of WhatsApp web, and then print driver.title, which will give us the title of the web page, and run. And to run it, we'll go back to our main.py and import bot.py and simply bot in it and run it. See, it prints out WhatsApp. How cool is that? Well, now we're going to write a bot class in bot.py and define its init method, which works similar to a constructor method in many object-oriented languages, but the Python community refuses to call it that. So it is simply called init. Now our class requires a contact, obviously after the self keyword that we're going to pass, which is simply a string that is shown as the name of the contacts displayed in your chat panel in WhatsApp. This will help us target a specific contact to chat with in the beginning, but we'll later implement a feature to change it while the program is running. So anyways, self.contact equals contact. Make sure you follow the indentation rules in Python so your code looks all good and clean. After that, I'm going to write these 2 lines of code that I found in the official documentation. So let me explain. Elem, which simply stands for element, this Webdriver wait method tells the driver to wait explicitly for 30 seconds, which is the maximum waiting limit, and wait until a specific element appears on the web page. And then this by xpath, which is simply an expression which searches for this text self.contact that we pass in the class, so then clicks on it. So if you know JavaScript, this is synonymous to getElementById method of DOM, but we are waiting because WhatsApp requires you to scan the QR code first to log into your account, and it will raise an exception if we don't. So let's test it now. Go to main.py, instantiate your class. You can say from bot import bot, and then set it equal to say my bot, and I'm passing a string bot, which is the contact that I have saved in my phone. Let's run it. Scan the QR code, and you can see it automatically clicks on this chat to open it. So now with that working, let's try another method that we're going to be using to send a message. Def send message self text, and this text is the text message that we're going to send. Now if you open WhatsApp and right click and inspect this chat input box, you will see that it is a member of class named copyable text and is the last member of it, which is true for all chats on WhatsApp web. So in our send message method, which we can set input box to driver.findElements by a class name and pass in copyable text, just like we do in a query selector all by class name in JavaScript browser DOM. Next up, we are reassigning input box, which is a list of elements on the web page, to the last one in the list, and we can achieve that by using the built-in length function. Then we're clicking on the input box and using this send keys method to type in our message we passed, and finally pressing return. You need to import keys from selenium.webdriver.common.keys in order to do that. Let's test it again in our main.py and send a text message, say test123, and run it. Fast forward to scanning the QR code, and we can see it automatically sends test123 message to bot, which is my contact. Everything looks great. Let's find a chatbot to start with. Rapid API is the best place in my opinion to search for a free web API. Head over to rapidapi.com, sign up first if you haven't already, and search for the chatbot. And upon search, the first thing that might catch your attention is this beautiful waifu AI. But unfortunately, it's freemium and they offer a 14 days trial. You can opt for it if you are willing to pay to get the feeling, or otherwise you can just choose brainshop.ai, which is free and the most rated among all, and possibly the smartest one. So subscribe to it, and also subscribe to my channel to get your endpoint. After that, you will get your secret API key and stuff. From this drop-down menu, you want to select Python and select the good old HTTPS client to get your API configured. Now in your bot.py file, import http.client and also import JSON. Now paste the connection and headers on top of your class, and to get a request, we're going to define another method inside bot class, def make call, which takes in a request string, which is just the message you send to the bot, which goes inside the URL. Now you need to use a string.replace method on this request string and reassign its value, because the way URL is encoded, it can't handle any spaces or line breaks. We can demonstrate that by searching for, say, Dunkin' Spaced Donuts in your Google search bar, and you will see it replaces spaces with this plus sign or this %20 sign. So this is the reason you need to replace spaces in your request with a plus or a %20 sign and a line break with nothing. By the way, \n stands for a line break, and we need that because users on Android can send multi-line messages on WhatsApp. Enough talk, let's paste the rest of the code here. Set response to json.loads, and your data goes in here. It converts this byte array into Python dictionary, and then we can access this CNT key from it, because we are only interested in sending plain text to user, not the JSON. And at last, return this response, and might also want to replace a few things in response, like bot's name to your name and her location to your own location, just to sound less sketchy while chatting. And that's it. Let's test it in our main.py, and since it returns a string, we can pipe it with our very own send message method to send the result to the user. Let's ask, who are you? Run it now. You can see it sends the response to user. but we need to find a way to respond to the message received by the user. So instead of this who are you, the last message received by user gets passed. So let's go to WhatsApp app and see if we can find any unique ID or class with the received messages. So inspect the last message here, and we find a data pre-plain text selector, the value of which corresponds to the value to the chat selected, which is bot in our case. And luckily we can achieve that by using the XPath expression of Webdriver. But there is a problem, since the driver object will return a list of all the messages in the chat, and we only need the last one, and we know we can do that by using the length function to tell the program that the one we need is the last one in the list. We also need to keep checking if there is a new message received to respond to. So how do we do that? Well, it's pretty straightforward. You find the length of all the messages received and store it in a temporary variable, say received messages, and then start a while loop with a base case if the length is equal to received messages. And if it is not, we know we have got a new message. And in that case, we reassign the value of received messages to the new length of incoming messages. Hopefully it did make sense to you. So let's implement it now. In bot.py and the init method, we write these 3 lines: self.incoming, which is the list of all the received messages, self.received messages is the temporary variable, and self.running is just a boolean to commence the loop. And instead of writing everything in main, we can just go ahead and remove that and write it in a separate method, say initBot, to make things look simple. Now write another void method and call it new message received, which returns true if a new message is there. We set a new incoming variable to all the incoming messages and then return true if length of incoming is not equal to self.received messages. Otherwise, return false. Let's go back to initBot and create a loop while self.running, which is always true unless you change it to false. And let's do that first in another method, say stopBot, and set self.running to false and print out bot stopped, and at last gc.collect to free up dereferenced memory. Although Python will do the job for you, but my mom advised me to collect my own garbage. And you also need to import garbage collector first. Now we have an initBot method and a stopBot method and have full control on our code. So anyways, in initBot method, let me paste it real quick because the video is getting much longer than I thought. So if there is a new message received, we reassign incoming and received messages, and this last message is the last message in the list. And .text is used in a similar way. We use .innerText or .text content methods of DOM. Then we need to send a message of underscore thinking. This is enclosed in underscores, which makes the line italic in WhatsApp, to let the users know that there might be latency in the response. Then this last line, which fetches a response to the last message and then sends it to the user. And lastly, if there is an exception, just print it out and ignore it and don't stop the code execution. And by the way, we also need to refresh the counter after sending a message just in case. So these 2 lines go inside your send message method. Now go to your main.py and call the initBot method and run it. Try sending some messages and you'll see the bot responding to them, and it works flawlessly. How cool is that? Now everything works fine, but there is one other problem. You will notice that if you want to switch between your contacts, you would have to terminate the current session and run your code again with different contact name in your bot class this time. And doing it over and over again is such a pain in the arse. So let's implement this feature which lets you change the contact while the bot is up and running. So we're going to listen for a key pressed event if you press a certain key on keyboard. It will prompt you to enter a new contact with a nice GUI and switch to it seamlessly. So let's do that now. In your main.py, import keyboard from pynput, which comes with a very cool listener method. Create a listener object with using this method and onPress argument. Set it to mybot.onPress. And then listener.start, which is going to run a new thread which runs parallel in memory and listens to a keyboard event. So whenever a key is pressed on keyboard, it calls this onPress method of the bot class, and we're going to write it now. So inside the bot class, define onPress, which takes in a key. The key is simply the key pressed on your keyboard that the listener is listening to, and in fact you can print it out here. Again, let's just paste the code I copied from my GitHub repo. So we're checking if the key pressed is the left control key. Make sure you import keyboard from pynput first. So if control key is pressed, it will set self.pressed control to true, which was initially set to false in the init method. Let me see. Yep, set it to false here, and inside our loop we will check if pressed control is true to break the loop. This step is mandatory, otherwise it will raise some really weird exceptions. So anyways, again, let me just paste the rest of the code. After the loop is broken, we will use prompt method of pyautogui, which can be imported as GUI to ask for user input. Then finally, clicking the new contact in the chat panel, setting pressed control to false so it doesn't break the loop next time. And at last, calling initbot again, and that is it. Hopefully everything works fine, so let's test it out. Run main.py, scan the QR code only once, and the bot is working now. You can chat with it as long as you wish. Let's press Ctrl and this nice little prompt appears asking for your input. Give it a valid contact name, Abuji, which means dad in Urdu, because I don't have that many WhatsApps. And let me test it from my dad's, and it works just fine. And that ends our video. We have created a WhatsApp chatbot for you to talk to your friends, and hopefully nobody will even notice, because the AI is super clever and very human-like and very friendly, and hopefully you can focus both on your career and your relationship now, or if you're like me, you can just talk to it when you feel. No, seriously. Signing out.